Right here, there he is. There we go. Beautiful slot red. This is about as fine as they get. Look at all the spots on both sides. There we go. Beautiful slot red, deep in the marsh. One of our favorite things to do in the summer, and what we're going to go over today is what setup we're using and why. I'll get this out of his mouth here. There we go. Got the shrimp creole on. Any color, you know, color's not too important when you're sight fishing a marsh, but what kind of hook you are using is very important. I got the 1/4 ounce bullseye on here. You could use a 5/16 also, just depending on how windy it is. But I like a 1/4 and a 5/16, black, red, or gold, golden eye, whatever's your favorite. I like to match it up with whatever looks prettiest, you know, like the shrimp creole's got some red flakes. I'm going with the red hook. It's a nice looking match. And when you're back here in the marsh, as we get later in the summer, a lot of times you get higher waters. We start getting more east and southeast winds where it's easier to fish over the grass. These ponds aren't as choked up with grass. The salt kind of can kill the grass off a little bit. This pond we're in right now isn't too grassy, so I'm using that open face jig head to catch these reds right here. And I'm seeing a lot of mullets rather than crabs. We went over this before, when we're seeing a lot of crabs in the ponds, I like that crawfish a lot. When it's mullets, I like a paddle tail. When we're using a paddle tail, we go with the open face jig head. That's what we're using today. The golden eye, 1/4 ounce or 5/16 ounce. Let's see how many we can get. Right here, there he is. You saw that, I had one swim right to the trolling motor. I pitched on him, he ate, I missed him, I set the hook too early. And I was trying to find him again, and while I was looking for him, I saw another one come out from the marsh, push out off to the shallows here. That one was what we call a layup. Easy breezy, floating high, easy pickings. Old shrimp creole. That's the size I like to catch. Not too hard of a fight. Good hook set, good little fight, and you can flip them in the boat without using a net. Good cast gets rewarded. So right there, if you saw, I made a terrible cast on the first shot I gave. So instead of like hoping the redfish would see it, because it was pretty far away, I just burned it in and made a better cast while I still had the fish in my vision. And that's really what I would recommend if you make what we call a botch cast. Let me get the net. We still working on the same lure. That's 4 reds on 1 lure, 1 hook. That's what I call efficiency right there. That's another chunky slot, 6.5, 7.25, somewhere in there. And whenever I'm sight fishing reds, we don't really have any secret spots or anything. I just kind of let the weather or the tides dictate where I go. So today we got pretty good chance of thunderstorm activity coming up, and I want to stay close to the marina. Whenever there's a 50, 60, 70% chance it storms, I don't want to venture off too far. Today I'm staying in the marshes close to the Wrigley's. Sometimes we'll run off the intercoastal. Sometimes we'll go all the way down by Avenue or Proctor's Point. And if you really want to give yourself the best opportunity, the Biloxi Marsh is about as good as it gets in the country. But this is a nice little area. I don't see tons when I come around here in the Wrigley's, but good enough to catch your limit and have some good action. We've seen about 10 today so far. This is the 4th one we've landed. And I can see some storms trying to build, and that's why I like to be close to the marina. If one gets right on top of us, worst case scenario, I can run in to the marina real quick, so. Another beautiful, beautiful red. Slots. All right, as you can see, we're entering like a bayou here. Sometimes they're real narrow and tight, can be real deep. Sometimes they're a little bit wider bayous like this right here. This one's not too terribly deep, but it is deep enough for speckled trout to get in. And when I get later into the fall, or early fall, late summer, September, October, that's another reason I love using the open face jig head. So you'll be fishing the flat, sight fishing, and then you'll come to what we call a choke point here, where it gets a little deeper and there's a little current, and those school trout will start moving up in here in the early fall, and you can simply cast it out, jig it on the bottom, and have a really good chance of running into the trout right after you came over a shallow flat sight fishing reds. Now it's still a little warm, I don't think the trout are really starting to move in here yet. That's more of like a late September, October technique that we use, but I just wanted to go over, if I had the crawfish or something like that on, those little 12 and 14-inch trout aren't really going to hit that. But this little, by having the small 1/4 ounce to 5/16 ounce jig head and, a paddle tail like the Shrimp Creole Matrix right here, it's a perfect combination to sight fish the reds on the shallows and then jig the deep turns and deeper bayous that connect duck ponds. And that's all duck ponds are. It's a big field of shallow flats that are connected by these little bitty creeks. And the trout live in the creeks and the reds will live in the flats. And every once in a while you'll run into the reds in the creek. Tank on this time. Big dog. Going down. Big slot there. That's a big slot. Oh. There he is. All the pretty spots on that one. This one absolutely devoured that lure. It's buried in his mouth. Barely hooked though. Came right out. Again, using the open face jig heads today. Not too much grass in here. We don't have to go weedless with the crawl. Get a really good hook set on these open face jig heads. Landing some big, beautiful slots. It's probably an 8-pound slot right here. This sucker, this is about as fine as they get. Look at all the spots on both sides. Awesome fish. Sight fishing reds deep in the marsh. tank, in the big tank. There we go. Another stud. Get a size of this one. Looks like he ate. Looks like he threw the shrimp creole off. That was one shrimp creole used all day. One bullseye 1/4 ounce jig head all day. Brushed off a little bit of paint of the red. Got both eyeballs on still. That's what I call efficiency. A limit of reds, beautiful reds like this. Use one shrimp creole matrix. Use one bullseye jig head. Stay close to the marina. Barely burnt any gas. Efficient trip. Caught 4 to 8 pound slot reds. Pretty quick and easy. It's only about 9 o'clock in the morning. Great little day on the water. We go ahead and end it here. Hope you enjoyed this episode of DockSide TV. Make sure to subscribe to the monthly bait box. We've been giving away a lot of lures and plastics, hard baits and such over the last year. COVID had our hook production really down. It was hard for us to put jig heads and hooks in a lot of the bait boxes, but now we're about to load you up with some hooks. This episode showcased the 1/4 ounce and 5/16 ounce, the smallest, two of my favorite sight fishing and shallow water marsh fishing jig heads. That'll be in your monthly bait box. The 1/4 ounce and 5/16, the golden eye, black platinum, and bullseye jig heads. And I really hope you enjoy that. Subscribe to the box. You'll be getting that in the mail. And stay tuned for all of our episodes to come. Trout season's right around the corner. Got a lot of great red fishing videos out there right now over the last few weeks. Until next time, guys, good fishing.